All right, let's go ahead and get rolling here. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for tuning in this morning. My name is Pat Kane, and we're here for another edition of Mornings with the Museum. The theme this week is scary stories, and we will get to all that scary, odd, and weird stuff in just a few moments. But before we do that, let's go around and figure out who is on this edition of Mornings with the Museum. So we'll go around and introduce ourselves to the audience. Again, I'm Pat Kane, Public Programs Visitor Services Coordinator here at the Museum of the Grand Prairie and doing other cultural and historical programs throughout the Champaign County Forest Preserve District. Barb, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm Barb Olschlager Garvey. I'm the director of the Museum and Education Department for the Champaign County Forest Preserve District.
Thank you, Barb.
And the phone rang.
Katie, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm the education program specialist here at the museum as part of the Champaign County Forest Preserve.
And Mark, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Mark Hansen. I am the curator at the Museum of the Grand Prairie.
Excellent. So it looks like Pat is occupied right at the moment, but which is scary all by itself. But we're going to tell you some stories about our artifacts today, and we're going to tell you some stories about scary stories in the area, and you will be really spooked. Okay, go ahead.
I think he's back.
Pat is back. That was scary.
The beauty of live programming. Caller was calling. They were curious if we had any more Cornhusk dolls. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to answer it this time.
Oh, we've got some, but we don't have a lot. Yeah, so we had a Cornhusk doll giveaway kit, and in anticipation of a virtual Harvest Fest that is going to happen this weekend. And we do have a few, and I do mean a few, maybe 10 left. I'm going to be on the porch between 2 and 4 this afternoon. So if you'd like one, come early. And we're happy to see that folks like that. We'll try to think of some other fun kits we can give away during this pandemic time.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks for taking the phone too, Barb.
There was no one there. Talk about scary.
Thanks to you three for joining us today here on this Mornings with the Museum program, and we're just gonna dive right into the Scary Stories program. One thing, if you haven't done so already, let us know where you're watching from this morning. Write it down in the comment section below. Pat Gallowich says she's watching from Chicagoland. Good friend Perry Morris says he's tuning in from Urbana too. So thanks to Pat and Perry for tuning in. Let us know where you're watching from. But go ahead and write that down below if you haven't done so already. Also, this is a live program designed to be a live Q&A at the same time. So if you have any questions for us, questions about the scary and the mysterious, write those down below. Questions about what we talk about today, questions about the museum in general or anything, write those down in the comment section below, and we can answer those questions here live to the best of our abilities. So as I said, we're just going to jump right into today's program because we have a lot of really, really great stuff to discuss. And again, the theme is scary stories. And let's just go ahead and get going with the scary stuff. Who would like to go first and discuss their things today, their stories, their scary stories?
I can go because I just have one, so maybe I should go first.
Okay.
I know
Go ahead.
people had more,
Go
so
ahead.
Pat can pull up pictures. So I was looking at, and you might hear a squeak, squeak, squeak in the background because I have a dog who's chewing on a toy. So that's not an interference. That's just the dog. So I was very intrigued by this whole thing called morning jewelry. Not like early in the morning, MOUR and morning. And so it appears that mourning jewelry has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, but it became really popular during the time of the American Civil War. What you're looking at right here that's in our collection, and it's a watch fob, and we have 2 watch fobs in our collection. And so it would hold like a little pocket watch, and that is actual hair that is braided. So you could have watch fobs, you could have necklaces, you could have little lockets that had very intricate weavings of someone's hair. And it was a way of holding a person that had passed away kind of close to your heart. So it became extremely popular during Victorian times. Queen Victoria had lost her husband, Albert, and they were, by all accounts, very much in love, and it was a sudden death. And she went into a very extended mourning time. I mean, there were mourning times where you'd wear certain colors of clothes and certain kinds of jewelry, but her mourning time was kind of extended and kind of happened at the same time period as our Civil War time period. And a lot of people were obviously dying. That was a very bloody, very horrible war. At that time, photographs existed, but not for the most, typically people like you and I wouldn't be able to have photographs of our loved ones. So when they passed away, you might want to have something to remember them by. So this was a way of wearing and keeping that person close to you. And they didn't have pictures to go through. They didn't have like old text to read. They didn't have videos to look at. So it seems weird to us, but the more I thought about it, especially in this kind of uncertain time of pandemics, the more it didn't seem weird. And actually these became so popular that I guess people would sell their hair to jewelry makers, and some people would just wear jewelry made out of hair that wasn't from a loved one. So I just thought that was super interesting.
And kind of creepy.
Well, a little creepy, but the more I thought about it, the less creepy it came in my head. It might, it is on the surface creepy, but think about it. They just wanted a way to hold people dear, right? And there's even something now, we think of this as kind of archaic and everything. You can send ashes of a loved one to some company out there and they will make it into a diamond for you if you wanted to, wear them close to your heart on a locket or whatever. So it's gone, but it's not all the way gone. I don't think people are doing the hair thing anymore. But yeah, mourning jewelry. If you look it up, there are so many examples, such intricate ones. So I wondered about these. We didn't have a backstory because they came from the Redhead collection. If these were somebody's loved one or just something they bought in a catalog or what. There you go, mourning jewelry, hair.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing when you said, Katie, about the diamond that you can have created.
Yeah.
I've seen people have ashes of loved ones in like a locket or some sort of thing that they wear around their neck or on their wrist or
like little dots. And so it's not totally gone.
Yeah, Jordan is watching out there. She said it's kind of sweet, and she says she has a lock of my toddler's hair in his baby book. So
yeah, a lot of people do that. My mother, my hair, believe it or not, used to be blonde, and she has like a blonde braid, which seems really weird when you find it. But and I haven't passed away, but a lot of people do that. They cut off a little piece of their little one's hair to remember them when they were little, I guess, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for that, Katie. So mourning jewelry, one thing we're discussing this morning. Who would like to go next? Barb or Mark? Who wants to take it next here?
You want to go, Barb? You want me to go?
I'll go. It's fine. So I chose to talk about hauntings. And then, there are thousands of hauntings. And of course, since we're a local history museum, I decided to talk about local ones. And narrowing it down was almost impossible, but I'll try to speed through my 3 hauntings because I thought they were fun. Well, they're not exactly fun. Probably the most commonly known one in the whole area is the English building, which was once the women's building. And this is perfect because it ties right into our year of the suffrage anniversary, women's suffrage, that is. So women were admitted to the university very early in the 1870s, but there was no provision made for them to live here. So the YWCA came forward and got some housing together, but the university didn't really get a building together until 1905. So this was once the women's building from 1905 to 1946 when it became kind of the home ec building. And then 1956, it finally was renamed as the English building, and it was no longer a women's dormitory. Well, having said all that, of course, somebody supposedly died here. Pat, you want to go ahead and show the next slide? There was once a swimming pool in this area, and can you show the next one? So there's some women in the women's building swimming in the women's swimming pool, and apparently a woman drowned there, or maybe she jumped from the gallery and hurt herself somehow. But anyway, and of course it was over a broken love affair. So so people have said ever since, although there's no evidence anywhere of this woman's suicide in the newspapers, for example, but then the university used to hide stuff like that too. So who knows? But every kind of haunting you could possibly imagine has been reported. So cold spots, the lights turn themselves on and off. You see shadows of people walking down the hall, doors closed and open themselves. And of course, people have heard a woman scream. So be careful if you're going to take an English class at the University of Illinois, because you never know what will happen. One of them even was a penny falling from the ceiling for no reason at all. So there you go. That's the first haunting. The second one is a little bit more explainable. This is the First Presbyterian Church in downtown Champaign, and I love its address. It's on the corner of Church and State. Ha ha ha. In downtown Champaign. It's the oldest still existing church in Champaign County, and it was founded in the 1850s. And by the 1880s, there was supposedly a haunting there. So a group of young boys first reported the haunting. They saw a ghost repeatedly, night after night. They saw a ghost. They ran home. They screamed. They told their fathers. The fathers would come out and look for the ghost, and there was no ghost. Finally, after weeks of this, a policeman caught the ghost, and the guy he was a man dressed up in a white suit, a white sheet, and he admitted that he was annoyed with his own son, and this was a way to take revenge on him. So not all hauntings are real, apparently. that was my second favorite one. And then this is the Urbana Courthouse. So it was recently renovated, and it still has this beautiful tower. The tower was renovated too. But in 1905, it was a brand new courthouse. It was only a year old. And in the Urbana Courier, there was an article that said, "Tells a gruesome tale." And what was happening was the elevator was running by itself. It was going up and down by itself. The sheriff was convinced that the new building was haunted. And the janitor decided it was because the elevator was right on the spot where someone had been hung 8 years before, because there was a courthouse here before. It was just a different courthouse. And I just wanted to quote to finish this out, I just wanted to quote the article because it was just great. It has made several trips up and down the shaft with no one to start or stop it. It was one of those kinds that takes a lot of elbow grease to run, so it can't really do this by itself. So you have to know a little bit about turn of the century elevators to figure out that it really couldn't do it by itself. You had to hold the button and hold it down in order for it to move. Mm-hmm. But was it a ghost? Was it mechanical failure? Who will know? Not now. Those are my local hauntings.
That's interesting, though, like from a cultural standpoint, how they went to haunting so quickly, you know?
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, and I mean, you know, if there weren't too many hangings in Champaign County. Mm-hmm. So it must have been really fresh in their minds.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's a traumatic thing. So, yeah, I'm sure that the area resonated with that anyway. And then, yeah, to go so quickly to haunting is kind of, the sheriff went on record as saying he was convinced it was haunted.
Somebody with, you know, big stature within the community says that, then a lot of people are going to follow, you know?
Yep. Beware that, I mean, when I first came to the University of Illinois, both the architecture building and Lincoln Hall had elevators that worked like that. And they had a glass door so you could see through it, and a cage door that also closed. So you could see yourself going up and down, and you couldn't, it didn't have any memory, right? So I know what kind of elevator this is, and it doesn't move by itself. It was cool.
Yeah. No, those are great stories of local hauntings. If you know of any others and you wanted to share them with us, write those stories of local hauntings that you know about down in the comments section. Maybe something you've experienced yourself or something you've heard about. Write that down in the comment section. We'd love to hear your stories of local hauntings too. Thanks, Barb.
Sure.
Mark, I know you got some interesting things to show us.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna reshare the screen here, and you can go ahead and take it away.
So I picked 3 artifacts that are not so much about hauntings, but are a little perhaps gruesome and mysterious and perhaps odd. The first one is this artifact here. This is actually a surgical instrument. It's called a trephining saw. And its purpose is basically to cut a small circle of bone out of someone's skull. Trephining is suspected to be, well, it's one of the oldest, I guess what we would call surgical procedures that archaeologists find in the archaeological record. They find examples of trephining going back 7,000 years. This saw actually has a pretty interesting story behind it. It was purchased by the first doctor to live in Tolono, Illinois. He got his medical degree from in, I think, New York State. And then after he got his medical degree, he went to Paris, France, to study more and sort of, become a better doctor. And while he was there, he bought a set of surgical tools. And this was one of the surgical tools that he bought when he was there. After he came back from France, he and his wife moved to Tolono, where he practiced, I believe, until 1900 or thereabouts. After his death, his wife gave his surgical equipment to another doctor in Tolono, who after his death, his wife gave these same tools to another doctor in Tolono. And then after that doctor passed away, his children donated this set of tools to the museum. So this tool is probably dates to around 1855. So Civil War vintage, getting into that time frame. And believe it or not, there are quite a few doctors' case notes from the Civil War where they actually talk about trephining on wounded soldiers during the Civil War. They are incredibly graphic. And even in the Civil War, it sounds like doctors realized that drilling into someone's skull was probably a last resort. So a lot of soldiers, if they were wounded so severely that this was an option, most of them died. But remarkably, many didn't. Trephining was thought to have saved their life. So sort of a barbaric, gross thing that seems to have at least saved some people with a great local story. So trephining saw.
Mark, real quick, is there any mention in those doctor's notes, or do you know, was there any numbing or some form of anesthesia that would take place before this would be used?
Probably not. Most of in the reports that I've read, these folks were in such a bad state that they were either unconscious or, so they don't really talk about anesthesia as we would hope there would be anesthesia today. That's not saying there wasn't something, but they really don't talk about that.
Gotcha. Just curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, what do we have next, Pat? Yes. So this is a lovely horsehide coat, probably from the late 1800s, early 1900s. It was donated by a local Champaign County family. What's interesting about this coat, I mean, we hear a lot about horsehide robes in sleighs and buggies during the winter. Well, this horsehide coat supposedly was made by the donor's, I believe, great-grandfather. And it was made from his favorite horse. His favorite horse died, and so he decided that it would be great to have a coat, a hat, and a pair of gloves made from his favorite horse. The hat and gloves no longer exist, but we have the horsehide coat. This wasn't homemade. It was actually sent to a company. There's actually a tag in the back, where they made the coat. And one of the interesting features, and I'm not sure you can see it on the, if you're looking at the photo on the right-hand shoulder, the horse's eyelashes were also incorporated into the coat, and they appear to be little fringe on the shoulder seam of the coat. So, yeah.
So the horse is always looking at you.
The horse is always there. It's actually a pretty big garment, and it's heavy. I can't imagine wearing it, but they must have been sturdier folk back then. Yeah, the last one. This one is just sort of a mystery. So this was donated to us by a family who came to the area from Ohio, first settling in Sydney and then later settling in Philo. The patriarch of the family had this lock, and it always sat on a windowsill in the shed out back of the house. The family remembers this lock always sitting there. It was always locked. Was never talked about, but the patriarch always had the key with him and would never talk about it. And when he died, he wanted to be buried with the key to this lock. And to this day, the family doesn't know what the significance of this lock was, other than it was never opened. It always sort of had a place of reverence. And at the gentleman's death, he took the key to the lock with him. So, little mysterious.
Buried with his secrets.
Yep.
Ooh.
I think I'm going to now. We have a Maltese Yorkie. She's a very tiny dog. She weighs about 8 pounds, but get ready for some gloves, maybe a scarf, maybe a hat to continue to honor her once.
Oh, I hope Catherine's not listening. You're going to be in trouble.
There you go.
Hopefully that's not for quite a long time, though. So.
But there again, thinking about the coat, sort of with what Katie was talking about with the jewelry. I mean, farm folk were, waste not, want not. So, why animal dies? Why waste it? You can make something out of it. So I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you think about it, your hair is a renewable resource too. So why not use it?
Yeah. So who knows? Eyelashes.
And we all know that from the pandemic that we just keep growing hair and not getting it cut. So.
Put it to good use. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, thank you three, for the mysterious, the odd, the weird things discussed today. As I mentioned earlier, if you have any odd stories of hauntings that you would like to share, you can write that down in the comment section below. Keep the conversation going. But I want to thank Barb, Katie, and Mark for joining us today. Thank you for watching. And until we meet again for another Mornings with the Museum, check us out on all of our social media pages. Visit museumofthegrandprairie.org or the Champaign County Forest Preserve District website at ccfpd.org to learn a whole bunch more. But take care, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.
Have a creepy Halloween, everybody. Don't think about trepanning saws at all.